Look at how much of a flex that background is right now. Dang.
Yeah. Say, hey guys, look at
check it
these.
out. Not even a big deal. Let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Ben, I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get you on. I'm moving right now, and I did not make that easy, but I very much appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Hey, no problem.
So before we get into some of the things that I want to talk about, you want to introduce who you are, maybe explain your affiliation with the shirt that you're wearing and everything else.
Yeah, my name is Ben Massie. I'm from West Central Indiana. I'm a freelance filmmaker, and I'm also a traditional bow hunter.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing a Push t-shirt. Been associated with those guys for, I think, probably 2 years now. They've become pretty good friends, and I've really enjoyed it. I've done some filming for them, some editing for them, and that's kind of where it is right now. But yeah, I really enjoy it.
West Central Illinois. Did you say Indiana, not Illinois?
Yeah. Yep.
My family is from northeast.
Northwest.
Sorry, Northwest Indiana. Yeah, Northwest Indiana.
Up near Lake Michigan.
Yeah, they're kind of near Gary. If you're familiar, Lansing and Cherville and Merrillville, they have a lot of
Merrillville. Yeah, that's about an hour and 15 minutes north of me.
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, that's where my dad's side. That's where they all come from. But that's neither here nor there. A couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about is, first of all, you just came out fairly recently with a pretty cool film with South Cox following around the mountains. I mean, it was absolutely a stunning footage, beautifully edited. You want to talk a little bit about what that was and, that experience with him?
Yeah, that was a high country mule deer hunt out in Colorado last September. It was supposed to be an 8-day hunt. I think we were up there for 6. Had a pretty bad snowstorm rolling in, and that pushed a lot of guys off the mountain all over Colorado. He got super close on multiple stalks, as you can see in the film, and it just didn't come together. And that's how stick bow hunting is, just how bow hunting is, I guess, but even more so with the stick. But a guy from West Central Indiana, 500-foot elevation, going up there and camping at over 12,000 feet. It was and I'm obviously not super fit guy. It was quite taxing on me, but especially falling around a mountain ninja like South.
Yeah, he's moving around for
an
old guy.
Gosh, I couldn't keep up with the guy, especially lugging a 10-pound camera around and trying to get footage of it. And I was a little nervous about the storyline because he didn't kill anything.
Sure.
But we were able to come up with a pretty decent storyline to arc the whole story together and kind of tell the story about stick bow hunting and the low odds percentage and that kind of situation.
Hey, sorry to interrupt right now, but we got to thank a few of these sponsors that help make this show and this type of content possible. So here it is.
First up, HuntWise, our favorite phone app. You can get it on Android. You can get it on iPhone. It's the ultimate sportsman's app. It's got mapping, movement predictions, and social media content. So look them up on your App Store, Google Play, or whatever kind of phone you have.
Vortex Optics is some of the best optics in the world. All right, we use them all the time, not only for hunting, but I actually use it sometimes out on the golf range.
And in the podcast range.
And on the podcast. It's Wisconsin-based, so it's an American company. And also, they make a pretty slick clothing line. So if you want to save yourself 20% off on clothes like this, head over to their website and use the code BOGA20 for 20% off.
Yeah, next up is Vector Custom Arrows. It's an arrow company that we really love. Again, they're a Wisconsin company. You basically go to their website, you enter in your bow specs, and they create a custom, perfectly tuned arrow that fits your needs. It's a micro diameter. It's heavy hitting. We shoot them into tons of stuff. We don't break them very much, and they're delivered right to your door. Check them out at vectorcustomarrows.com.
All right, if you didn't know already, we are Michigan guys. So we like partnering with Michigan companies. So we are proud to announce that we are partnering with Prime Archery. And believe it or not, James, you're going to be shooting a compound here.
I'm going to dabble.
He's going to dabble in the wheelie bow again. So we're both actually going to be shooting the Nexus bows that are brand new for 2021.
You're 4. On Nexus 4, I'm going to be shooting the Nexus 2.
Yep. So if you guys haven't checked these bows out, go take a look on their website. They're awesome.
Nano grip. Just check it out. The grip stays warm in your hand. Huge deal. I get cold fingers, and I'm a big fan. Looking forward to it.
If you've been paying attention to the podcast and this show, you know that we are big advocates of saddle hunting, and the best saddles that we like to use are the Trophy Line tree saddles. They are top-notch. They fit really well. They're very adjustable. We've actually used quite a bit of them, and we found that Trophy Line is our favorite, mainly because of that. And if you guys think you want to get into the saddle game this year, or if you're looking to upgrade your saddle, head over to their website, and you can save yourself 10% by using the big long code Boga Hunting TL10.
One word.
10%. Go get yourself some discounts.
We work with another amazing Michigan company, Bivouac Bow Co., the makers of some of the finest traditional archery equipment that we've had the chance to shoot. I've been loving the mobility and the stability of their backland bow, shooting it for about a year and a half now. Huge fan. It's compact. It shoots like a longer recurve. If you want to get into traditional hunting, if you want to maybe upgrade the traditional setup you have, go to Bivouac Bow Co. Give them a call. Talk to Georgia, talk to Jim, and they'll hook you up with something pretty special.
We've all kind of been there. A few hard days in the woods, you're going to get a little sore. Things might not be feeling normal. That's where you can actually use something that's a pretty trendy product right now, and that's CBD. It's not cannabis, all right? So you're not going to be feeling all crazy.
It's hard to light.
This is hemp extraction, I believe it is.
It is.
It's
and this is locally sourced, so it's
sourced.
Pure and local.
It's pretty much an oil with a dropper. You drop it on your knee and rub it in just like any other ointment.
Or any other body part that might be hurting.
Yikes. But we use it. It helps. You save yourself 10%. Go to their website. 20%.
Yeah, 20%.
20%.
Boga.
Sorry. Boga 20.
And now back to business.
You got to look up here.
And now back to business.
So it was like, obviously, like, the shots were incredible. And just, I like some of the use of silence. Like, it was a cool hunt. When you're coming up with like a storyline like that, is this premeditated? Are you doing it as you're like talking with him about it on the fly, or is this you come back and try to fit it together? How do you make that work?
I kind of had the mood, as dumb as that sounds, I kind of had the mood picked out for how I wanted to edit it. I already had the soundtrack picked out and had kind of the color scheme and like the edit style. Yeah. Figured out before I even headed out there. And then, of course, in my head, I'm picturing him shooting one and, how that storyline is going to go. And then we pack up at 4:00 in the morning on that last day, hiking off the mountain. It was like, okay, now we're not going to get one. Now what do we do? So I had, a few hours hiking off the mountain to kind of discuss it with him and kind of brainstorm and figure out how we're going to get a decent story out of a no-kill hunt. Yeah. And, by the time we got off the mountain, we had a pretty good plan figured out. And then it was just a matter of coming back to the editing suite and just kind of working through footage and trying to figure out how to arc that story and make it come full circle. And I think it turned out okay. It obviously would have been even cooler, at least for me to have a kill. But I was pretty pleased with how it turned out. So yeah, I'd say probably half of it was figured out before even heading to Colorado, and then the other half was definitely post hunt.
How'd you get in touch with South? He's like very far other end of the country. Like, how'd you guys run into each other and decide to do a project like this? This is a big major project, and I would imagine, like you said tonight, you spent a lot of hours in the editing studio. So like, how'd you get in touch with him?
I met him. I basically met him through the Push. Tim Nebel with the Push has done multiple films for him in the past and has done a lot of his editing. And he was actually requested to go with South on this hunt, and he had prior obligations. So Tim said, "Hey, give Ben a call," because I'm sure he would be interested. And it took about 3 seconds of me knowing that the opportunity was open for me to say, "Yep, I'm going." Yep. So, and I had met South, I think up at the Kalamazoo traditional show, like the January before. Yeah, it would be that January of 2020.
It's right south of where we are. That's why we are.
Yeah. Yep. So we were Kalamazoo, and I met him, got to talk with him, and I thought, man, I'm pretty sure I even told him if that opportunity ever came up for me to follow you around with a camera on the mountain, I would absolutely just die to do it. And so it took zero convincing once that opportunity came up, and I'm glad Tim wasn't able to go, because that was a pretty awesome hunt of a lifetime for a camera guy. So
yeah, that was beautiful. I mean, so you guys were up 12,000 feet. Do you have the thing like the first couple nights where you wake up a lot in the night and like, because like when I go camp on the mountain, like I'll wake up in the middle of the night, like catching my breath. Do you have that kind of thing when you're out there?
I had it the entire time I was up there.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have any trouble sleeping. I did wake up a lot, but I didn't ever feel like it was because of oxygen deprivation. It would just, I would just wake up, and it took me about 3 seconds to figure out, hey, I'm up here on the mountains. Like I was like, where am I? It's pretty surreal up there. It's just, I mean, it is so different than corn country down here. It's gorgeous. And it's the first time I've been out west a few times, but I've never been up in the mountains, high elevation. I mean, above timberline. It was so incredible. I mean, it's everywhere big. You look is like a postcard.
Yeah. It's so, once you get to that certain elevation, 10, 12, whatever it is, and you're above the tree line and you're like, you can just see so far, everything's so clear up there. At least when it's not like foggy or whatever. And
right.
I mean, it's just like you said, where we come from, it's like a lot of big woods and corn, and just the amount of space that there is, it's just incredible.
It's gorgeous. I would go back. I need to be in better shape than that last. And I never realized what issues would come up, because down here I have no trouble breathing. Obviously, it's 500 feet. And I can run around, do whatever, and have no trouble breathing. Boy, as soon as you get up there, it's just like, it takes 30 seconds of walking, and then you need 10 seconds to kind of catch your breath and keep.
And you get you get in your head about. I at least get in my head about it.
Yes.
Like, no, you're fine. Easy, Jim. Steady gyms. You're fine. It's just oxygen, but you're like, okay. It was funny. My wife. We went out and we were staying with some friends in like the Fraser area in Colorado, which is fairly high. She had flown in, and she, like, a lot of times what I found is it's easier to get acclimated if you drive in as opposed to you fly in and you're just suddenly up high. We flew in, got picked up, and went, and it was funny. Like, she took one step out of the car and puked in the guy's bush. It's right. I'm like, oh, come on. But the interesting thing was, he has battled with cancer in his life, and so he has an oxygen machine for certain times. He's like, oh, no worries at all. Come here. It throws her an oxygen, and she's like, instantly feels fine. She was like, it was incredible. You just throw some oxygen right in her nose and we're great.
Well, what was weird about it was when I had talked to Tim Nebel about it, and he said it's funny because you'll feel super out of breath. Your heart is just beating out of your chest.
Yeah.
But then if you stop, it only takes a handful of seconds to get to where your heart rate comes back down and you feel good, but then you start taking off again. Like you said, it gets into your head. Especially, I mean, like I said, Sal's a mountain ninja, dude. That guy, he runs up the mountains, and it's like it's nothing. So he turns around and goes, hey, you coming? And he was kind enough to wait up for me, but I'm like, man, I was struggling to breathe. But the view and the opportunity was just, it totally made up for any inconvenience.
What state were you in again?
West Central Indiana. Yeah.
No, I know. What state? Which state did you hunt? Oh, in Colorado. Yeah. Yeah, mule deer in Colorado is like the dream. I mean, that's like the place to go. When you were going, like, the question that we always have is like, you're dealing with battery issues. It seems like with camera. I mean, it didn't get terribly cold, except it did when it did, and snowstorm blew in. But like, how are you dealing? What's like battery management looking like for something like that?
Well, and that was something I picked Tim's brain a lot before I went. He filmed with, I think, like a Sony A7 III. With smaller batteries, or I think he had just filmed for South like 2 or 3 weeks before I went to Colorado, and he had filmed out in Nevada for South's hunt for mule deer. And he was using like these power banks plugged in like USB to his camera and charging it that way. And he only had to bring like 8 or 10 of those, and he was good for a week. Okay. I was using like these Sony NPF batteries to run my Blackmagic cinema camera. And I was having to use an external monitor. And so I had a battery to power the camera and a battery to power the monitor. So I was kind of budgeting 2 of those big things at least per day. Yeah. And then I thought, well, contingency, I'm going to bring more. And I ended up, if we hadn't used llamas to pack up on there, I would have had to rethink some things, because I had multiple pounds of batteries to where I showed up. Sal said, bring as much as you think you need. We'll figure it out. And then I got up there to the mountain. He goes, holy cow, you got a lot of batteries. I said, well, I don't want to run out, but Tim had said, you're going to use less than you think you are.
Yeah.
And it was true. Cause I mean, there's not a lot to film up there, because a lot of it's just glassing and you're waiting for a stock opportunity to turn the camera on to film. So I definitely went through about not even half the batteries that I brought up there. But
it's better to have them and not need them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the next time I go, I'll probably be able to pack less, just because I was so terrified that I was going to run out of something. I was going to run out of storage. I was going to run out of batteries.
Yeah.
I had like a little solar panel to charge some batteries up there, just in like the worst case scenario. And I didn't use any of it. So I know better next time if that opportunity ever comes up again. But I think the llamas were regretting my poor choices.
That's right. They got their workout, man. They earned that feed. All right. So, I mean, elephant in the room. And by elephant, I mean all the giant deer in your background. One thing I did see is this year, you got it. What was that deer's name? Spork? Was it Spork?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, that's a monster buck. Are all the deer that I'm looking at right now in your Indiana area?
Yeah, yep, West Central Indiana.
Dang.
Yeah, they're all probably within, I think, that big 8-pointer was 2016. That one was last year, Spork. That one was like 2015. All the others just kind of, I mean, those are all probably my bucks within the last 8 or 9 years or so. There's some good deer running around, but Indiana doesn't have a lot of big deer, so.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, so clearly we're from Michigan. You know, I don't know. Like, we have very different definitions. Is this right here? See this this deer with the fork? Like that's a Michigan monster right there, man. That's a decent
I've
spread.
got cousins from Grand Haven, Michigan.
Okay.
And toothless cousins.
Yeah. Wow.
They hunt. I think they hunt up in the upper lower peninsula. Yeah, up in there in the big woods, and man, they're thrilled if they even see a deer. So I know certain spots in Michigan, it can be a whole different animal than down here in corn country in West Central Indiana. But we've hunted up in the north lower peninsula. I mean, there's some like we have these APR zones that they've been having in place for a while, and they're actually starting to pay off. But you know, we had Dr. Grant Woods on the other day, but like saying basically a lot of it's just like nutrition. You know, the nutrition is so critical. You can leave them alone, but still the age class here is different from the same age class, you know, by you. But I mean, looking at your background, pretty incredible. Tell us a little bit about Spork. You've been watching this deer for a while, clearly, if you named it. Yeah, that deer, I think I had him for 2 years prior. It's a teeny tiny spot. I killed him on 3 acres.
Really?
But it was adjoining a property that doesn't get a ton of pressure. I had summer pictures of him for 3 seasons. And then last year, it would have been 2019, 2020 season. He was 3. He was probably probably around 120 inch, like 7 or 8 pointer. But he had a big frame, and every time he would walk out, it was like, whoa, grab your bow. Yeah. And then he would walk through, and I passed him a couple times, and boy, he looked gorgeous. And I knew he was probably going to hit that 4-year-old jump. Yeah. That a lot of bucks do. And I started getting pictures of him. I still underestimated how big he was. Pictures never, I was like, yeah, I mean, he's nice, but I had another one around there that I was chasing a little bit. I wanted a little more. And actually, so the morning I killed him on, I think it was like the 24th of October. Yep. On a morning hunt. It was really slow, but I think the previous evening, right at dark, I think it was the previous evening or 2 evenings before, the buck that I was actually going after, it was a big typical 12. He had just been in there right at dark. Anyway, I knew he was in that area. Yeah. And I thought, well, if he's around, there's a chance he'll loop through this little bedding area. It's basically a little thicket that I get to hunt right there.
Is it residential? It's like such a small piece of land.
No, it's actually, it's an 80-acre field, but it's got 3 acres of huntable timber on it. And it basically is just, there's a huge block of timber, and then on the neighbor's side, and then I hunt basically an open field just adjoining it with a little 3-acre peninsula that points out into the wood, out into the field. And it has bulletproof access with an east wind, which is kind of an oddball wind, but it's a great spot because if I have an east wind, it's kind of no question where I'm going to go.
You know where to go. Yeah.
Yeah. I can hunt it on a north. I actually think I killed him. I'd have to look back. I almost feel like it was on a north wind that morning. The peninsula sticks far enough out. If I sit toward the end of it, I can keep a consistent wind blowing out into the field.
Sometimes it's nice to have that little off wind rather than the perfect wind.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they're almost kind of counting on the wind to be in their favor, and they don't really see you do it. Like, it's, if for people who are listening, like almost like a diagonal wind where it's almost diagonal at the deer, but they're just off where your wind is.
Yep. Well, and I'm kind of set up. So I'm on a peninsula that sticks west out into the field off of a big block of woods. Mm-hmm. And the deer come in obviously from the east out of that block and walk the perimeter of that. It's basically just a bowl, and they walk the perimeter of that peninsula that sticks out and go back into the big block of woods. Well, I set up on the south end of it, waiting for I really like a north wind, a northwest wind. It's kind of blowing back into the timber way farther down. Sure. But the deer, as they're looping out into that peninsula, that northwest wind's kind of blowing in their face, like you were saying, and it's kind of quartering into them. It's almost wrong for me. Yeah. And I'd have to look. It may have been like a northwest wind. I can't remember. It was almost off the morning I killed him. Yeah. I didn't see. Actually, on the walk-in, the funny part is on the walk-in, I saw eyeballs in the headlamp as I was trying to sneak my way in. And I don't usually use a headlamp, but I heard something messing around. So I just popped it on real quick, saw eyeballs, turned it right back off. And I waited out in the field and just kind of waited for the deer to push back into the woods. Yeah. And it just trotted. I could hear it. It was super calm. I could hear it trot back into the woods. So I slipped in, climbed up the tree, hung the stand. And then I don't think I saw a deer all morning. And it was about 9 o'clock, probably, what is that? Probably 2.5 hours after daylight. And I went ahead and I brought the rattling antlers and thought, well, if there's something territorial around here. And I knew Spork, I think the previous year, the 2 times I passed him, I called him in. And I knew
he was receptive.
Very, very receptive to calling. So I barely had tickled those antlers together. It was a really light, just a little spar. Yeah. Hung it up, put it behind me, and looked back up, and he's charging out of that block of woods right at me. And I'm like, okay. Well, and I didn't even pick up the bow. He's walking straight at me. And I thought, part of me wanted to kill him, part of me didn't. Because, like I said, there was another buck that I was wanting to kill in there. And I knew Spork was one. If he lived another year, he probably would have been stupid big. Yeah. But at the same time, I hadn't killed since that buck in 2016. Yeah. And so it'd been a few years I'd eaten the tag.
You pass him though. I remember a video of you like with a monster buck, just a monster for us. He passed it and I'm like, you suck, man. Yeah. Yeah.
I regretted that. Well, and that was with a stick bow. And my cousin ended up finding that shed like 7 miles away that winter, and it was 100% that buck. And we basically from that, we knew it was probably a low 140s 8-pointer. Yeah. It was like, that's not a buck to sneeze at. And he looked pretty nice on the hoof. And he especially looked nice as he's walking away. And I was like, dang, I should stop that one. So in a nutshell, I had my fill of a stick bow for a couple of years, picked up the compound. And of course I killed Spork at 10 yards.
I know. That's the thing.
I mean, he came right in, dude. He walked right at me. He's walking straight up at me. He gets to about 20 yards. I'm like, well, I better grab my bow. So I just pulled the bow off the hanger, and I'm kind of half-heartedly looking at him. And then he kind of turns his head and just starts walking right in front of me. I mean, 10 yards, and just stopped in an opening. I'm like, okay, we're done here.
Yeah. No, that's how it is. You know, like I've had the same thing. I have 3 years just a traditional bow, and I'm mixing in a little compound this year. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get this buck. Whereas the last 3 years, they've been like 40 yards, and it's just like, now I'm going to get one right at that, 10 yard, and you're going to hate it. But I'm going to feel great about it either way. But just knowing that I could have shot it with my recurve would have been,
Well, and I thought I would, because so Indiana has like an urban season.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. You have to hunt that's a really small zone. But if you kill a doe, you get an extra buck tag. And so I got an extra buck tag this year. And then, so I killed Spork on the 24th of October, and then thought, well, I'm going to go try to fill the urban tag. And then I think a week into that, I killed another buck. And of course that one was at 15 yards as well. Like they were both sub 15 yards. And of course I thought it would bother me a little bit more that I didn't kill at least one of them with a stick bow, but
you still got the buck. It's all really, at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter. I don't know. They're all fun ways to hunt.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that you can shoot a buck,
Well, and so I just to not have any more temptation, right after season was over, I sold the compound and thought, okay, I'm going.
Did you really?
Yeah, the compound's gone. So I thought, okay, I scratched that itch. Yeah. Got the bucks tagged, and I'm a happy hunter. I'm good for another few years of drought if it takes that. I've passed deer with a stick that in hindsight I probably should have shot, but in Indiana other than the urban season, it's a 1 buck state, and there's usually a good handful of nice bucks walking around somewhere. I've always at least got one kind of not pegged, but at least one kind of in the back of my mind that I'd like to kill. And I don't want this to come across wrong. I don't want to drop what my standards with a compound would be to hunt with a stick bow, because I want to shoot nicer bucks just because I'm in an area that has them. Yeah. And of course, when I'm toting a stick bow around, like you said, they're sticking around at about 40 or 35 yards. Yeah. And, but I know that enough times out in the woods with a stick, it'll eventually come together to where a buck that I want to shoot comes by within stick bow range. So,
yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about this. I feel like I'm more selective with the stick bow than I was even just with my shots. Like I am less willing to, I feel like it's actually been great. It makes me more patient, where I'm fine passing up a shot that I don't feel great about. Cause I'll admit, like early on, there were shots that I'm like, I'm going to take a shot at that, with the recurve. I mean, it's just so much slower that if a deer is any alert at all, a longer shot, or when the deer is super alert, it's just not even worth losing the arrow, because by the time the arrow gets there, you're not in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing that I practice at 25 to 30 yards with a stick bow, and I'm not saying I'm a great shot, but when I'm practicing there, like absolutely perfect conditions, I can usually hit what I'm aiming at 20 to 25 yards. And then I don't know if you saw, I've had a video out on the Push channel, probably, it was fall or winter of 2019. And I had a buck that I had been hunting for years come by. He had a drop tine hanging off one side, and he came in, and I knew he was going to walk this certain trail, and I knew that trail was at 24 yards. And he came in right off that trail, and I looked at him, and with a stick bow, with the compound, 24 yards looks like a very reasonable shot. Oh, yeah. With the stick, dude, that may as well have been a mile with adrenaline pumping. Yeah. I don't know how guys hold it together at 24 yards. I mean, there are guys that are shooting in 30, 35 yards with a stick. I can't bring myself to do that yet. I don't have that confidence yet, but.
No, I'm with you. In the moment, and especially with deer, they're just so jumpy, and it's like, I just don't want to do like something really dumb and feel really bad about it,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I'm hunting pretty small tracks, so I would almost rather let an opportunity slip through that deer has no idea I'm in the world. Exactly. Than to throw an arrow at it and either one, wound it and lose it, or two, even just alerting it that I shot at it bothers the heck out of me. So
me too.
I'm just waiting for that chip shot, man. There's going to be a buck dumb enough to walk by at 10 yards.
That's right. That's what I count on. Yeah. Just actually going back to Spork, you mentioned you're hunting this knob kind of woods poking out into a field. How are you entering? You said you got this like bulletproof entry. What does that look like?
It's honestly it's an open field, road on the west end of the field. Yep. So I say bulletproof. it's the only time it's dangerous is if there are deer in that field. It seems like there isn't a whole lot of nighttime feeding in that field, which is weird though. But there is a low spot in the field, like a grassy waterway the farmer leaves. And I'm able to take that right in. And if there are deer out in the field, I'm usually kind of below eyesight, and I can just come in off the tip of that peninsula, and I've got a trail kind of cleared, keep it cleared back to the spot that, I mean, unless it's got a lot of west in that wind, there's almost no way they can get downwind of me without going out into the open field, and in that case, whatever. But it's pretty well a bulletproof spot to sit and a bulletproof entry. I've spooked very few deer outside of maybe a couple does here and there, and apparently Spork the morning I killed him. Maybe I spooked more deer than I know, but
you think that was Spork, the deer you saw?
Oh, well, yeah, I meant to mention, I looked at I had a trail camera on kind of a good, there's like one entrance that they use off of the main block coming out into the peninsula. I've got a camera there. So almost any deer that comes out there under that point, I get pictures of.
Gotcha.
And I had a picture of him heading back into the block at like 6:30 that morning, right as I was coming up. So I know he was there.
So you bumped him and he still came back in.
Yeah, he probably, and it wasn't a hard bump. Like the picture of him, he's just kind of moseying back in. He's not running. He's not even fast walking. It's just kind of a trotting back in. And I think he probably went right in and just bedded. It's super thick right in there. And he probably just bedded. I mean, he had to be super close because as soon as I rattled, it wasn't 30 seconds later, he was on me. So
I wonder why. Like you always wonder what goes through the buck's head. Like why that time? Because sometimes it's like you hardly spook a buck and he's gone and never coming back, as opposed to sometimes they just, I mean, he didn't even go that far.
I think it comes down to personality. Like they're all just completely different animals. They're the same species, but they're different animals.
Would you get bumped? Would your personality, like say you got bumped?
I'm skittish, man.
You'd be gone?
I'd be gone, dude. If I hear something nasty or something that's like, oh, jeez.
Really?
Heck? Oh, yeah, I'm out of there.
Dude, the moment I'm hearing antlers just tickle, I'm coming in, big neck, ready to fight someone up, man.
But you'd probably be a spike.
Yeah, right.
Spike.
Okay, actually, this is a good thing. We've never talked about this. Jared and I will send each other pictures of our spirit bucks. So I'll be like, hey, man, I found a picture of your spirit buck. And he finds like the weirdest little antlers. Or I always pick big fat deer with little antlers, and so we'll send each other. You have it saved as my.
I can't.
It's a spike buck the spikes are like thick, but it's just like this. And so we'll regularly I'll just regularly send Jared my spirit buck.
You can see it right in here.
Hey,
to see it.
There's worse deer to be
right
to have that as your spirit
at least
buck.
I got that mask, dude. See that mask? You would not mess with it.
I wouldn't mess with
I want to fight.
I think I'd be susceptible to rattling. You wouldn't? You'd just be gone?
Oh, I'd be running in, trying to throw my weight around.
I could picture you running in, being like,
I'd lumber in,
popping your chest out a little bit.
I'd check stuff out, but I'd keep my distance.
Would you?
I'm not a fighter.
No.
I wish there were more bucks like you around here because they hate rattling usually around here.
Same here.
I mean, that's legitimately the first buck I've actually killed with antlers. Like I've rattled a few small ones in, but that's the first mature buck I've ever rattled into bow range.
Well, it's interesting too. Like you having enough experience with them to know that he's susceptible to like calling in. That's incredible knowledge that like a lot of times guys just don't have on the deer that they're hunting.
Well, and I knew, so I'm trying to think of when it was. I think it was November 11th of the previous year. So 2019, I called him in, and I'm pretty sure it was a rattling sequence and a pretty hard grunt. I mean, I was really getting at it. Yeah. And he came charging in, same trail I killed him on. I mean, he came walking right in, did the exact same thing the morning I killed him the year following. And I thought, okay, maybe he's just keyed up and high on adrenaline, testosterone.
Yeah.
And then that winter, so post-rut, it was like late, it was almost January. He was out feeding in that open field with a couple does. And I just thought, I'm going to play with him and test him. And I got out the grunt call, and he's probably 250 yards away. And I gave two like pretty low, pretty quiet, just loud enough that he could hear. And boy, he whipped his head up and just bristled up and came stomping right to me 250 yards. So I knew he he thinks he ruled the roost. So
love that. That's hubris right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's hubris. Buck hubris. Great for hunters, bad for bucks.
Bad for bucks.
Yep.
Interesting. So now this year, are you going out with South again? Are you got any big plans? Are you head to Iowa or anything fun like that?
I actually, the first out of state hunt I've ever done was turkey hunt out in Ohio a couple weeks ago. I
really?
hunt right here. I am so happy to hunt here in Indiana and stick around through the whole, well, especially with the stick bow in hand. It seems like I'm holding it till the bitter end. So I get every dollar's worth of my tag here in Indiana as it is. So, you know, packing up to head out of state isn't usually something I've done. I've considered it, and I may do it this fall.
Yeah.
Go out to Ohio, maybe, I don't know. But as far as going out to film out west, I'm not sure. I'm not itching to get back out there right away. It was a pretty intense hunt,
right.
You know, physically and just time demanding and all that stuff. So, I don't know what the fall's going to bring, but, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, that's always the case.
And we've been a lot like that for a long time, where it's like Michigan's tough hunting. Not a lot of big bucks. We actually a fair amount of deer, and we just hunt public land a lot. So up until until relatively recently, maybe the last 5 or so years, we've stayed in state and just extensively hunted certain areas. Maybe a couple hour wide portions of the state and just stuck there, some spots up north. But yeah, there's like a lot of stories of these guys having these great adventures out of state. But, what we found is that, even hunting in your backyard, this past year I hunted I have a 3-acre spot that I'm just moving out of, hunted there, and it was kind of urban. So I was able to basically hunt there every day. And I saw an unbelievable amount of deer every single time. Right. Had some good shots at bucks. And it's like, this isn't a crazy adventure too. It's just like very different. I saw does fighting like right below my stand with their heads. And like, at first I'm like, I thought they were button bucks. I had the binoculars on. It's like absolutely does. It's just weird. You see weird stuff like that, or foxes tearing around. And so it's just cool. Like, you can go out of state, and we definitely do and will be doing that. But like in state, there's awesome stuff to find.
Well, and I'm kind of a homebody anyway, for the most part. And I'm just I hunt an area, one of the primary areas that I hunt, one of the counties I hunt. I grew up with my dad out there hunting. Yeah. And I'm hunting just in an area that has so much deep hunting history for me.
Yes.
Right there, that I could not see a deer all season. I say that, I'm lying, but I could not see
day a deer 3 and you're out
and be perfectly satisfied. I just love hunting here in Indiana, and there's usually, knock on wood, there's usually no shortage of deer for the most part, and there's usually a handful of good bucks around. And it seems like if I hunt hard for an entire season, and I average probably 50, 60 plus sits around here, and it's within that 50 or 60 sits, I'm usually going to see a good buck at least 2 or 3 or 4 times. And that, to me, that's enough of adrenaline dump. I don't need to travel a whole lot to get that. I'm having fun right around home. And it's just never been anything that crossed my mind to leave the state and go hunt somewhere else, because I've got bucks that I want to kill here. And I already struggle with that. What makes me think I'm going to kill one out of state?
Right. Because you get, and we've talked about this a lot. The difference out of state is you get like 4 days, 5 days, and you get a quick figure it out, which there's a whole lot of fun, which we love to do. Figure out a new spot real quick and, test your woodsman skills and all that. But to get to know an area, get to know a buck like you did, that's incredible.
That's the fun for me, is the history with the deer. There's been multiple deers. There's this one, I almost killed him. So let's see, the buck that I killed in urban zone, I killed on the 12th of November last year. And on I think it was the 1st of November, I had a buck named George that came in, and dude, I almost had him killed. He was at 30 yards with doe, just in some honeysuckle brush. Yeah. And he kept grunting. It was late morning. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and he was grunting, pushing her around through that thicket. And I thought, I'm finally going to get a chance. Well, this is a buck that I almost killed with a stick bow the year before. And there was a video that I have on the push. And that buck, I think last year he would have been 9 or 10. And I've had history with him for, I think, 7 of those years. So, that to me is the big thrill, is following a buck for multiple years and trying to figure them out and just get the one opportunity that I'm going to get at them.
Yeah, it's like a psychological game at some point. You're just figuring out who he is, how he acts, when to step in. That's really cool.
Yeah, like I said, that's when you start realizing their personalities are just completely different. I mean, it becomes pretty evident by the time they hit 5 or 6 or 7 what their personality is.
Yeah, are they a homebody? Are they a guy that goes way out? Do they fight? Do they are they real passive?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it a bunch. You see all types of deer. Like we were talking was on a previous podcast. Like we found deer that hide, like are good at like tucking up under brush and stuff, and other deer who love to just tips of points out in the swamps. Yeah, and it's just funny how they change, even though they're all in the same area.
Mm-hmm. Well, a good example of that around here. So we're pretty open. A lot of where I hunt, like there's maybe a 2 or 3 or 4 acre patch of woods, and then just hundreds and maybe thousands of acres of crops between. Yeah. And so I'm hunting pretty small, like fence rows and patches of woods. But there are some larger blocks, maybe like 6, 7, 8 miles away. And over the last few years, my cousin and I, we hunt the same area, and there's a handful of other hunters around there, but it's not super heavily hunted because there's not a whole lot of huntable cover. I mean, like I said, he found that shed off that buck 7 miles away. And then that happened again this fall. There was a buck that we were following around up on the prairie out in this area. And then my cousin stumbled on that buck shed 7.5 miles away. Yeah. So I think what's kind of tricky for my situation is there's more roamers than homebodies. Yeah. So the odds of getting on a buck like that, just on that happenstance, that one morning you're in the right tree, the odds are just super low anyway. Yeah. I think that's kind of the fun for me, is seeing the personality. And some of them are huge, huge roamers. I mean, 10 plus miles. And then some of them, you're pretty much going to get every picture and see that buck all within about a mile. So,
yeah, it's amazing how it works. And it's like very different terrain by you. Where it's like ours is minority fields, majority woods, probably. When you're out, are you hanging, and like, do you have preset up stands? Are you hanging hunt? Do you stalk, or is it, what does it look like?
The last handful of years, I've always hung a stand. I have a bunch of trees with screw-in steps in them. Yeah. And so like if I've got a farm, like it may literally be 5 acres that I can hunt, or like in the case with Spork, it's 3 acres. And, would I be smart to have a stand in there? Yeah, probably. But I've got a tree already picked out with screw-in pegs, and I've got a stand that I absolutely love, and I've got, tuned to how I like it. So I just pack it in with me, and it takes me an extra 15, 20 seconds to hang the thing. Yeah. And I can do it quietly. So I just pack in a stand everywhere. And then if I go to a spot where I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to use a preset tree or not, I'll just throw a couple sticks on the stand and go in and figure out where I want to go sit. And that's how I actually killed my urban buck last year. I was seeing a bunch of bucks on this one path and thought, well, I'm going to move over there. And so I went over and hung, 50 yards over and got him killed. So I'm a pretty mobile hunter for the most part. I don't usually like to set up in the same spots a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, especially with these small tracks, like it doesn't take long for you to get pegged.
No, even if you're just 10 yards over, I mean, that makes a big difference, it seems like, because if they figure out once, they're looking at that tree every time they walk by it.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like does, so you get some of those older does especially, and that doe's always just, she pegs you out real fast.
Oh, yeah. Yep, have a lot of that.
So what's stand? What's so special about this stand setup? That are you just used to it, or what have you figured out that you like?
I was using for years. I was using like a Lone Wolf Assault, and I had it, fully quieted down and customized how I wanted it. And I would hang it in a tree and then go, I don't want to sit anywhere else. I want to go sit in that tree, in that stand. Well, then I thought, well, why am I leaving it out there? I'm just going to pack it everywhere I go because I really enjoy it. Well, then last year I picked up that Lone Wolf Custom Gear 0.5 stand. Yeah. And I thought it would be too small because I'm a big dude. But I absolutely love that stand, and it only weighs, like 6 pounds or something. So as soon as I got that in my hands, I thought, yep, this is the stand. I don't ever see probably leaving a stand anywhere ever again. With a stand that light, it adds almost nothing to my back just to throw it on and go. And like I said, it only adds 15 seconds to hang it if I'm walking up a tree on screw-in pegs. So
Yeah, that's how we are. We do the saddle thing.
Yep.
And because we hunt so much public land, it's just like a couple sticks.
Yeah.
The platform, it's like this big,
Yeah.
you know, and your saddle. It's
Yep.
easy, and it's so light. It's so much different. I just was laughing. We used to have what were those climbers we had? Those really loud. You still have yours?
Like an old Summit.
Summit.
Yes,
it was a Summit. Yeah, it was just like my whole back. It looked like I was like alpine. You know, backpacking, and it was heavy, and it was these. Remember those little
they suck.
those
just
fabric
webbing
straps?
straps.
Yes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, you get out there, you can't carry anything. Or like what I would do is take bungee cords and bungee my clothes onto. Yeah.
Yep. I did the same thing, dude. And honestly, I would have been hunting with one of those for longer if there was one night I got completely lazy and just said, forget this. I'm going to leave the stand on the tree.
Yeah.
And I went back out there maybe 2 or 3 days later to go find it was gone.
Yeah.
So somebody took it, and looking back on it, that was quite a blessing because
did you a favor.
I moved on to
Thanks,
the
buddy.
hang and hunt with a hang on, and it was downhill ever since then. But I used the saddle for probably one full season. I gave it 100%. And I dabbled with it for probably 5 years. And I do love the saddle idea. I never got super great with a stick bow out of it. If I was compound hunting, I would have no trouble, but I just there were a couple of angles that I had trouble with a saddle. So
it can be tricky. What's your, how long is your whip?
64.
Ooh, a big bow. Yeah.
Yeah. So the string angle was really contacting the bridge quite a bit.
Yeah.
On certain angles, like if it was right behind me, I was fine. But if I was trying to shoot, facing the tree, if I was trying to shoot at like 10 o'clock, I was having trouble getting.
You got to like lean forward a little bit with some of those.
Yeah,
I dealt with some. I had a longbow. Was that 2 years ago? And I had some of that. It was fine. You can make it work. Mm-hmm. And I messed with my bridge and some of my rope setup, and I got it to work. But you almost had to be closer to the tree.
I ended up running like a tether at like almost chest high, like really low, and keeping a super short bridge.
Yep. Yeah, that seemed to work for me too. That's interesting. So you are you even true trad? Don't you have like a sight? What'd you put on your bow the other day? Are you even really? I don't know that he's really trad.
I don't know.
That bow, dude, it looks pretty sacrilegious, but it's pretty sweet. I don't know. I've dabbled with it a little bit. I keep going back. It's funny because I've talked to certain guys that are this way. Like, I'm not opposed to a metal bow at all.
Right.
And I honestly, I've owned some. I shoot the best groups I've ever shot have been with a metal ILF bow.
Yeah.
But there's just something about, like, if I'm going traditional, I just love the custom wood bows. Yeah. I love the wood bows. So I've picked it up quite a few times. I've got one of those little, like, I've got like 2 little screw-in pins, like Three Rivers sells them on this, what is it, a DOS 8 HT21, one of those push risers.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sweet, shoots great, holds well, but I just keep going back to like the Stalker longbow. I absolutely love the
real
wood
pretty.
bows.
Yeah, it makes a beautiful bow.
Well, if I'm not killing anything, I may as well have something really pretty and aesthetically beautiful to look at. So
that's right. That's right. So you mentioned beforehand you're up editing. Do you have something else in the can? Is that what they call it?
Oh, there's always something to be editing. I've got probably 3 or 4 different projects I'm working on, just local client stuff. But trying to land some larger client work. Hopefully we'll see. Not necessarily in the outdoor industry, but anything that would possibly require a little travel and have some bigger, maybe some bigger filming opportunities. I'm not at all ungrateful for what I get around here. I'm super blessed with local work. I keep pretty busy. Yeah. But you're always looking, dreaming about that next big thing.
Big adventures. Yeah. I mean, that seems like that's half of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and after doing Sal's video last year, it was not a letdown's kind of a strong word, but it was almost that, to go back to just, normal editing workflow. Cause I was editing that and like, dude, I'm looking at all this beauty on this screen. And then I go back to, right around cornfields and all this. And not that I don't love that, but it's just like, man, that's a whole different world. So
very different.
So doing something again like that, or just, traveling to a different area, that's definitely on the docket. I want to be working on projects like that here coming up. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, where can people, we're coming up on time, but where can people find out, like, where can they watch this video, first of all? Like, where can they see this?
You can actually find it on my YouTube page, Flatland Films YouTube. It's also on Sal's Stalker Stickbow's YouTube channel. And I've got some teasers and stuff for it on my Instagram, on Flatland Films, Instagram, Facebook, all that. So you can find me there, find my most recent work, and contact me if you have some projects you want to work on.
Yeah, there you go. And go back to the video that he posted where he passed up that monster buck with a stick bow, and just shame him. Give him a shame comment on there. Shame. I think I did. It was a long time ago, but I vividly remember being like, I watched it at work, and I'm like, man,
he threw shade.
Oh yeah, I'm like, dude, unbelievable. So there's more shade.
Why would you do that? Yeah.
What an idiot.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I think I mentioned in there, I didn't want to kill him. It was on Halloween. I didn't want to kill him that early, but if that buck walked by December 15th, I was going to kill him. Well, I ended up seeing him late December, probably about 100 yards out in the field. And you don't know how many times I was praying quietly, come on, please get over here. Come on. I wanted to shoot him then. Yeah. Of course, I was dumb and didn't shoot him at 10 yards on Halloween. So
when it comes to 100 yards, though, Jared, what's our motto?
Aim high, play the win.
Aim high, play the win. You know what? I'm glad you knew what I was thinking. This might as well be the Aim High, Play the Win podcast because, one of these.
I'll have to remember that.
Awesome. Well, Ben, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really great to meet you, to hear more about the things you're doing, and everybody who's listening, go check them out.
For sure. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.